Welcome to The Stumbling Spirit, contemplations on the path of resilience. Whether you realize it or not, you are resilient. It's your birthright. As you take in your next breath, know this truth. It's not only about your capacity to overcome difficult situations, but it's about your courage to do the necessary work to heal, learn, grow, and move forward. What you gain is invaluable wisdom. And it's through these hard stumbles in life that we often discover a new purpose that aligns with our spirit. My name is Fabio da Silva Fernandez, Reiki Master, Mindfulness Coach, and Mystical Explorer. Join me weekly as the Stumbling Spirit podcast highlights the lives of extraordinary people like you, sharing transformative stories and beneficial practices of resilience to guide you on your wellness journey. Connie Lee knows what it's like to take risks to manifest her dreams. 7 years ago, she left her secure career in corporate marketing to follow her passion for helping others as a psychotherapist. And it was no small feat or expense. She studied in New York, where she got her Master of Social Work and immediately began to practice. In 2019, after relocating to Toronto and starting her new career in Canada, she was diagnosed with cervical cancer. Despite this upsetting news, Connie's drive, courage, and zest for life has not swayed. She's doing everything possible to cure herself of this disease through conventional and holistic means. I'm grateful to have my sweet friend Connie on the show. Welcome, Connie.
Thank you for having me.
So you recently finished a round of chemo. There were 6 in the cycle, right? How are you doing?
I mean, I feel like that's like a hard question to answer and it changes every day. But if we're talking about today I'm feeling okay. I don't currently feel a lot of physical pain, but the journey's been really emotionally tiring as much as it has been physically tiring. And with each cycle or round of chemo that I've done, like it has brought its own onset of different side effects. So it's actually very hard to fully prepare each time around. So yeah, this has been this huge amount of trying to navigate the unknown or just the unpredictable stuff.
And part of that is the anxiety that you're experiencing before each treatment, but also the side effects of each treatment too.
Exactly.
Could you maybe explain a little bit to us about what you've experienced in that regard?
Yeah, so for example, I currently have stage 4 cervical. That's considered having advanced cancer. It's incurable. And the hope is for me to not have to do it forever, but that's a possibility that I might have to do chemo for a long period of time. And so I currently do it like every 3 weeks. This can change in the future. It can depend on if I have to switch up my chemo or I'm also doing my cocktail's huge. It's like I'm doing 2 types of different chemos and I'm also on 2 immunotherapy drugs and they all come intravenously. So when I do go for chemo, it's like 6 to 7 hours. It's pretty much the whole day that I'm kind of in the chair at the hospital getting my various different medicine, I guess you can call it right now. For example, when I started getting chemo, you just get like super fatigued. And there's days where like in the beginning, I felt like completely bedridden. And then maybe like a week later, you just somehow, my body turns a corner. So I do believe in the ability of our body to kind of heal itself, because if we think about just how I'm given 2 types of medicine that is supposed to completely suppress my immune system. And then we're giving 2 types, giving immunotherapy, which is supposed to kind of jumpstart it and activate it. So, your body's going through a lot. And despite all of that, it's kind of a reminder to like, wow, my body still finds a way to recover each cycle. But yeah, it's really It's really grueling. And, my immunotherapy brings its onset of other side effects. So really you're managing the side effects of the chemo, but then you're managing of the cancer, and then you're managing side effects of the chemo. And then there's just like so many side effects to the side effects.
And you know what's interesting is, I mean, unless you are experiencing the cancer yourself, one never really knows what those side effects or the range of the side effects are.
Yeah, and it's different for each person too. Like, this is what I've learned. Like, cancer is a big, huge umbrella term for just so many different types of illnesses. And I have talked to like so many people in the cancer community, and like even people that I know that have this similar cancer as I do, their body responds completely different, even if they're on the same medication. So, I feel like I have a lot of supports from the huge friend community that's been quite supportive, who've kind of been my family for me throughout this grueling process. But yeah, I would say that the experience, in a way, despite even if you have like a lot of support, is a lonely experience. And this is something that I find that I hear from. It's not an uncommon experience where it feels quite lonely, because it really is sometimes hard to use words to describe what the experience really is like. There's an author, I don't know if I pronounced her name right. She wrote this book called Between Two Kingdoms. And I feel like that book is maybe the closest I could get to finding someone who could really pen to paper with words really express what it is like for someone going through cancer, and in particular like a younger woman going through cancer, because that experience is quite different. I find someone who's younger like myself going through later stage cancer is quite different than, let's say, someone going through cancer in their 80s or 90s, when they might have accomplished a lot more sort of life stages or life goals before they get that diagnosis.
When you say that it's a lonely experience, can you describe that?
Yeah. Well, I'll try my best, because I sometimes feel without words to truly, sometimes I actually don't even think any words in any language can truly describe what it is like to go through what I've gone through, or what others might have gone through who are going through essentially a terminal illness. If I could use some words to describe it, I would definitely say it is a traumatic experience. It is a very abrupt experience. I just felt like my world was turned upside down pretty much overnight. And to go from feeling like the world was my oyster and feeling like I could accomplish anything that I wanted to, or, if there's anything that I had a dream about, I felt that there was possibility, whether it be in my career, whether it be in my personal life, whether it be like where I choose to live. When I got the diagnosis that my cancer had advanced, it was a huge surprise, because I was originally diagnosed in 2019, and it was very, very early stage. Like they said, my cancer was like the size of a pencil mark, essentially. And then we did this procedure called LEAP, where we essentially just, removed a part of my cervix where they found the cancer. And I was told like the chances of it coming back was very, very, very slim. I think they said 5%, and I asked, what are the chances of it coming back? And they're just like, well, anything's possible, but very rare and stuff like that. And so that was in 2019. And so I was diagnosed, and then I had this surgery, and then I was told I don't have cancer. Like, this was in a matter of just a few months. So originally a very short period of time getting the diagnosis. And then I don't think I really even had time to truly process it, that I had cancer, nor did I even feel like I truly identified as someone with cancer, because in a way it's just felt like it came and then it went so abruptly. So I would say it didn't really define a big part of my life, because I went back to work not that long after, and even the recovery time for the surgery was very short and minimal. And I go for all my checkups, and every time I go for my checkup, they would say you're good, you're in the clear, there's no sign of cancer, even though I would say that I had some symptoms that I had reported that I thought, well, what is this kind of thing? And I would say I felt I would say I felt dismissed, when I reported symptoms of what I now know was that the cancer was still there. Near the end of 2019, 2022, my symptoms continued to progress. I started hemorrhaging. I started bleeding a lot. I recall just reporting this to doctors and just sharing this with them. And then, it was again dismissed. Could it be maybe it's your period? Maybe it's like your hormones are off. I just kind of got the runaround for all these other multiple tests, only to find out at my next physical that, my cancer had come back, and that was very evident. They didn't even need to do they did a biopsy, but they could see with their own eyes that it had aggressively grown. And so to find out you're pretty much kind of going from remission and 0 to stage 3, 4 was shocking to me, because I immediately had to put a hold on my career, a career that I had spent. It's kind of like my baby, like a child. When I moved back from New York after my clinical training as a psychotherapist, as a social worker, I started my private practice, and it grew really quickly. And I really felt like it was a career change, not just a career change, but it was like a calling for me. And I just felt really fulfilled in this part of my life. And I felt like I was making a difference, not only for myself, but for other people, and being of service. And so to kind of have that taken away, to have, I had a lot of plans for my private practice and my career and my life, my personal life. Overnight, I had to kind of make a lot of really major decisions about my health and my future. And if I look back and I think about how much I kind of had to do in a very short period of time, whether it be I had to decide if I wanted to freeze my eggs right away before they started chemo and radiation last spring. And I wasn't given much time to make that decision, because they wanted to start the treatment for my cancer as soon as possible, basically. And then I had to, alert all my clients that I would have to take a pretty long hold on my career and find them supports. And eventually, after treatment initially in Toronto, I had to also make the decision when I found out that it didn't have stage 3, I had stage 4. I had to make the decision if I wanted to stay, or if I could stay in Toronto, or if I was to move back to my hometown where some of my family members are, and where I felt at that time that maybe I could get a little bit more support entering into a new stage in my treatment that was going to be a lot more aggressive than initially thought. So to go through all of this in such a short period of time, it is a lot for your brain and your body to reconcile. And to be honest, I think that I'm still trying to catch up to everything that's happened. But I would say, there's moments where it's been heartwarming, because I've had so many people come through and have been so supportive to me during this time. But I would say it's also in equal parts very heartbreaking. I think the part that feels heartbreaking is, sometimes we grieve things that we once had and that it is no longer there. And for me, I would say the things that I grieve the most are actually the things that I kind of never had, and that I had always wanted, but now I'm not sure where that stands. So, for example, I had always imagined myself to become a mother later in life. And, when I had to do the radiation to my pelvic area, that kind of made my ovaries useless, essentially. So that's one example of something that was really difficult to kind of have to make a decision about. If you were forced to make a decision between, do you want to live or do you want to keep these ovaries? I guess if you look at it that way, it made it a bit easier, but there's nothing easy about making a decision like that when it's not a decision that you make. There's a difference of, I don't want to have children, and a difference of, I cannot have children, and that option is taken away from me without me even feeling like I had a say in it.
Is part of the grieving, though, too, that you were forced to make decisions overnight about your life? So when I think about when you made the decision to become a psychotherapist, you made a conscious decision to study in New York, a conscious decision to make all of these moves. But overnight, you find out that you have cancer, and then you have to make all of these changes in your life. that are really forced upon you. Do you think that part of the grieving is being forced to make these decisions to do away with things that you loved in your life?
Yeah, I think there is an element. As humans, we like to feel like we have choices in our lives. We get super stressed if we feel like we're stuck in any way in our lives. So in this case, I would say there's grief, and maybe this is also still part of grief, but there's anger. I would definitely say that I had feelings of anger, because how can anyone really make like a truly sound decision when they're in a place of fight or flight? I think there's a part that I forgot to mention too, is originally we thought that we could save my ovaries and that there was a possibility I'd still be able to have children. And it was just a roller coaster, because it went from this is possible, and then it went from that to, oh, actually we did another scan and it's not. It's gone farther than we thought, and then it's like, actually you can't, so we can't save your ovaries. And so it was just like a big roller coaster of emotions to go from one day like, oh, actually you're stage 3 and we can keep your ovaries and we're not going to radiate in that area, to actually no, this is not possible for you. I do have moments where I feel like there's a lot of things taken away from me. But again, like I said, I never had the thing in the first place. I would say sometimes, the experience of not even having something and not having that feeling like you didn't have the agency or the choice in the first place is where the grief and the anger can come from.
When you think about yourself, just in retrospect of what you've been through in your career and the choices that you made in your career, and what you're going through now in your treatment journey for this cancer, how have you changed as a person?
I think it's still evolving how I have changed as a person. And I think some of these changes are going to still reveal themselves later. But right now, what I can see is, because I have this greater sense of impermanence in my life, or just in life itself, I really have become more choiceful in who I'd like to spend my time with. That has definitely been heightened for me. I feel like I do not have patience anymore for fuckery, is how I put it. I'd say if I didn't get the cancer, I'd probably be a bit more tolerant, maybe. I would kind of describe myself as a recovering perfectionist, a recovering people pleaser. Sometimes those two things go hand in hand. And I would definitely say it is not as big of a priority anymore for me to please everybody else, or, doing things specifically, let's say, to not, if I'm worried I'm going to make someone uncomfortable, like basically I just don't really care as much anymore. Like these things seem a bit futile. I think the way I try to feel like I'm getting some of my power back or my own agency back is to just be as authentic to myself and to others as much as possible. And sometimes that means making hard decisions, whether it's if there's certain people that you feel are not healthy in your life or no longer in a way serve you anymore, bring health in your life. And, sometimes these can be friends, sometimes they can be family. It could be certain habits that you have in your life, but learning to really think about, who are the people that are kind of raising me up at this time, because I really have not a lot of energy to spare and not a lot of time to spare. So I've just been very choiceful in who I'd like to spend my time with, knowing that is much more limited than I thought, and that I'm very protective of myself now. And I really try to make sure I surround myself with people who bring me more joy, and that I feel like I can just be myself, and that, it's kind of like a relationship where we both kind of have that same respect for each other. So I think if there's anything I've noticed that has really changed me, it's that, yes, I am very selective about who I spend time with. And the second thing I would say is I've learned to really advocate for myself in ways I never thought I was capable of, especially when it comes to your own life. I've realized no one cares about your life more than you will ever care about your own life. And in the end, you might have, certain practitioners or doctors or other friends or family who care about you, but ultimately in the end, you are responsible for your life and you are the one that's going to care the most. So, I am not worried as much to like bug a doctor a bit more, or to ask for to like really push for like that other test or for another specialist to take a look at something or to get a second opinion. Because I just realized, like, you know, in my cancer experience, there's so many misses, and then sometimes, you know, even when people mean well, and at the end of the day, I really had to push for a lot of things, and there's just really no time to try to always be, how do I say this, polite. You know, like I do everything in a way that I think is still diplomatic, but at the same time, I just learned to become a lot more direct. And when it comes to a matter of life and death, it doesn't really matter as much to me anymore to, like I said, to people please.
How has the healthcare system supported you and perhaps disappointed you in this process?
The way I look at it is I would describe our Canadian healthcare system as quite broken. I don't really think that's a secret. I've navigated 2 different provinces receiving my healthcare, and I can kind of see there's some similarities and there's also a lot of differences. But I think at the end of the day, I try to also have some compassion for the doctors treating me. I would say I have felt very disappointed, but I also want to hold space for that. I think also doctors have to work within a broken system too, and maybe go in with the intention of wanting to do more, but also sometimes the environment or the variables that they have to deal with or the politics also kind of prohibits them from providing the care that they really like to as well. But I would say that, you know, when I went to one of the tops, you know, supposedly top cancer hospitals in Toronto, I did feel very much like a number. I think as patients, as people, as humans, we kind of know our body best. So, you know, when I'm reporting for 2 years straight, in my case, you know, my discharge had changed. That's one sign of cervical cancer. Come back. You know, that was mostly ignored. It was, are you sure you don't have a yeast infection? Or are you sure you don't have something? And, you know, obviously I got tested for those multiple times. And no, I don't have those. No. So, and there was never a time where it was like, okay, well, maybe we should get you another scan or something. I think that they felt that their conventional kind of checkups were enough, but, you know, obviously it wasn't really. And so that's an example of where I felt failed, is just feeling dismissed multiple times and for multiple years about my symptoms, and that they're not taken seriously, and that, you know, that the doctors can be, in my experience, you know, I can't speak for other people, can be so like protocol obsessed. You know, there's this kind of, you know, there's a recipe for how they see the patients, but they kind of, you know, I feel like they need to have some flexibility or creativity and, you know, having flexibility with some of the protocols, because in this case, my case was kind of rare, but at the same time, if it is different, then I should be, you know, the protocol that they have for me should be also treated differently, right? Rather than just dismissed. And no, we normally don't test for this if you've already been tested for this in the conventional way, and, you know, since you're fine, but you know, I wasn't. So obviously it's not 100% their current, you know, methods of testing if the cancer is there.
So the 2 provinces that we're talking about are Ontario and Alberta. How can our healthcare system be more supportive to women's issues?
I do find that women's issues in the medical world tend to be dismissed. You know, I think that overall, you know, it's still a very masculine, male-dominated industry. And a lot of times women's health problems are not taken that seriously, or they're dismissed, or they're viewed, like I said, like when I said I had hemorrhaging or some major bleeding and it was going on a long time, they just assume, are you sure it's not your period? You know what I mean? And this went on for a long time. And it's like, I know it's not my period. I would not be bleeding for like 3 months straight, basically. And it wasn't until like my cancer was already so observable that like, oh crap, like, you were, you know, I remember one time when they did find out that my cancer had come back, I remember my doctor, my gyne oncologist, was like, you really were telling the truth. Like, that's the phrase that she used. And I was really surprised, because then I asked her, I'm like, why are there a lot of patients that lie about how they're doing? Because I doubt that's the case. So that's an example of just how often women get, you know, dismissed. And then you add on this other layer that I wonder about in terms of, you know, women of color as well. Like, I mean, there's already statistics statistics out there that kind of tell us that women of color tend to be dismissed a bit more. And, sometimes they might be more quickly advised to like get something chopped out or removed, or, or they might be believed less. So yeah, I do wonder about those certain experiences that I've had, and then whether or not, for example, being a woman and also being one of color, being a younger woman, have also had impacted maybe how I was treated. Like I would say they were polite to me. My doctors were polite to me, as in they had that bedside manner of being friendly. But, I'd rather someone actually just believe me than just be friendly towards me. There's a big difference there. I often kind of felt a little bit paternalized, and, I might look a little bit younger than my age, or maybe I don't sound as, I don't know what it is, but like, I'm an intelligent woman. I know what I'm talking about. I also do my own research, and I'm someone that deserves, just like any other patient, I'm someone that deserves to be taken seriously. In terms of like what I've talked about, what I felt very disappointed by in terms of the medical healthcare system here in Canada. But I also want to say that I've had some really great advocates for me. So I think it's really important that I also mention that. For example, they have this program called AYA for young people with cancer. And I think that has been a really helpful and supportive experience to have. It basically, I've had this one nurse that is on the AYA team at my current hospital here in Alberta, and I would describe her as an advocate for me. So she's really kind of this middle person that helps me navigate between the hospital that she works for and with myself. So a lot of times I find that when I go to her and I ask her, I'm just wondering if you could help me to connect with another specialist for a certain concern that I have, or, they sent me an appointment for consult for something, but I have no idea what this is. Can you find out? Or am I supposed to be doing this particular checkup? I'm not sure. It seems kind of redundant. So, she's someone that can kind of has access to my healthcare team relatively quickly. And she's also just very honest and kind of lets me know too, like how to navigate the system, or she helps me to navigate the system as well, which I think is so important. It's not just showing up for your appointments, but it's just like understand how to truly navigate the system, which is its own part-time job within itself. So I'd say that has been really helpful for me. And I hope that these types of services continue to grow and that they continue to be supported, because they're so important, especially for young people with cancer like myself, who I know are underserved.
You've also curated your own healthcare experience, right? So it's not only about conventional healthcare, you also have a team of holistic practitioners that are helping you too. Could you describe that for us?
I do. So when I realized that no one was going to save me in a way other than really myself, and to find out there was limited options with my type of cancer, and that was incurable or potentially incurable, I enlisted my own team. I work with an acupuncturist who also does chiro with me, and I have a naturopath that I work with a lot. In a few weeks, I'm going to be working with a trainer to kind of help me to gain some strength, some muscle mass back after all my treatments, or just, time away from my regular schedule that I would normally have for these types of experiences. Oh, I'm also doing neurofeedback and biofeedback with psychologists right now. I also do therapy on a regular basis as well. I don't know how I would have navigated this without the support of a therapist. So yeah, I have a really huge network of support. I would say a village, because even though I had mentioned like it's up to me, I just realized, after my experience with the conventional healthcare system, which, as I mentioned, they have a place, but I just knew I needed more than that, because I needed to protect my own body. I need to get help from people who would help me proactively manage some of the pretty brutal side effects that come with chemo. So yeah, it's been really helpful for me. For example, I should have neuropathy by now, because a lot of the chemo that I'm on causes neuropathy, but I, so far haven't had the symptoms of nerve damage for me hasn't been too bad. And I truly believe it's been through the support of my alternative healthcare team, like the acupuncture that I do and working with my naturopath. So that again makes me feel like I have some agency in my own health and my own healthcare. And I do believe that these people that I work with are, truly do care about me and the people that they support. And I think there's something that is really powerful about working with people that you trust. It's hard to feel like you can heal if you don't believe or you don't trust in the people that are, that are there to support you and your various healthcare needs. So sometimes I look back and I wish that I had enlisted this alternative healthcare team or village when I first was diagnosed. But I think also, it's better that I'm doing it now than never.
You had a number of therapies, including chemo, immunotherapy, radiation, including internal radiation. And of course, with that comes side effects. Some of the side effects that you've mentioned in the past to me have been ear ringing, affecting your energy, general energy, the nausea, constipation, all of that. How has your connection to your body changed?
I think the way I would describe how I'm connecting to my body now since getting advanced cancer is, the relationship feels a bit distant. For example, I lost a lot of weight when I had my first round of chemo and radiation. So when I was diagnosed in January 2022 with advanced cancer, I started going into treatment for my cancer around in March, and I had to do mainly radiation and then chemo to kind of improve the effects of the radiation. And so the type of radiation I get is to my abdomen, pelvic area. And so when you get radiation in that area, it causes a lot of GI issues, basically. And I lost a lot of weight at that time. So in a very short period of time, like I'd say, for the first 3/4 of my treatment, I was around the same weight, and I'd always been the same weight since I was 16. So I've been the same weight basically for almost like 2 decades. So I kind of had a very stable relationship with at least my body image, at least like physically and stuff like that. I lost a lot of weight near the end of my treatment. I think I lost like about 10 or 12 pounds in just a matter of, let's say, a month. So a very short period of time, and I'm already very small framed. In a very short period of time, I had this kind of very different body that I don't connect with in the same way. And I think also when when I had medically induced menopause, then that happens when you get the radiation to where, I got the radiation for my cervical cancer. It's another change in your relationship with your body, right? Because you think of your body as all the different parts in your body have its own specific function. Or we think about, our ovaries and the relationship it has with producing different types of hormones and reproduction and stuff like that. So when that part was taken away, that's another different relationship that I had. And I think that, again, this is another example of, the relationship that we have with our body is a type of grief that I carry, and I'm still adjusting to like this new relationship I have with this new body. And I would say that I still would like to have more compassion the same way I did before, because I think that what I'm learning is like before, when my body was functioning in the way that, let's say, it's supposed to, I regarded that I had a pretty healthy relationship with it. But what kind of relationship do I want to have with it now when it's not functioning 100%, basically? Can you still love these parts that are not working in the way that it used to? And I know that the same way that my friends love me, regardless if, my ovaries work or not, or if I've lost weight, how can I have that same relationship with my own body? Because I think there are these moments of disassociation with your own body. And so I would like to repair my relationship with my body and to still love it regardless of if it can perform. Where we come from this kind of culture where we're so obsessed with productivity, right? And it also extends to our own bodies. This is where I feel like, when we think about people who are working with disabilities and stuff like that, like how they're largely a population that is ignored, whether it is, not every space might have elevators or have a ramp. Well, this is, the same way I view like my own body now. Like I'd like to still find a way to honor or respect it, even though it's not able to perform the same way it used to. But yeah, so that's sort of where I'm at with my body and cancer. And I guess I've had a different experience with my body forever. I've always kind of, whether it's good or bad, there is this part of me that has gathered worthiness from feeling or looking desirable, whether it's to the opposite sex or maybe being seen with more positive regard or treatment from women as well, whether it be like they wish they were skinny, or also, I had a past where I used to model in a time in my life, so I've had this relationship with my body where it's been commodified. It's also been a way that I've been told I'm worthy because of this. And, obviously cognitively, I might know that that's true, but there is still, I think that these things that we've learned about where women find worthiness, including myself, even if you're so-called woke, it still runs really deep. And I guess I'm talking about, obviously patriarchy, blah, blah, blah. How dangerous and shame inducing that can be. But yeah, so for me, I'm learning to find this new way of seeing value and loving myself or my body or respecting it, even when the world or when, I have these moments where I don't feel like it's as valuable as it used to be.
Earlier, you mentioned that you moved from Toronto to Calgary. You sold your condo, you sold your possessions, gave away your possessions, and moved to Calgary to be closer to your family. How important has it been to you to be surrounded by your immediate family and to maintain your friendship connections?
That was a really abrupt experience. Me moving, making the decision again, it was a very quick decision. Don't feel like I had too much time to think about it. But yeah, I had made the very hard decision to move from this place, Toronto, where I called home, and it was my chosen home for over a decade. And yeah, like I had built a huge friendship group there. I had a home there, and I made the decision to move back to Calgary for treatment. I was going to start a new type of treatment, and I knew that the treatment would be a lot more aggressive, and I did not want to do it alone. I wouldn't say I was alone anyways in Toronto, but I was living alone, and I just felt like I might need care in a more, I wanted to live, with my family while I was getting treatment, just in case anything happened to me. So yeah, I feel like it was like a maybe a month where I put my list in my place, I staged it, I sold, I was packing and then packing everything in boxes and selling my furniture. And it's just crazy. I think about like a very short period of time, how much you can accomplish if you have to. I would never recommend this to anybody, but if you have to do something, you always find a way. And it's kind of what happened to me. I would say that that's been everything for me. I don't know how I would have been able to get through what I've experienced without the support of my chosen family and, all the friends that I have gratefully been able to maintain both in Toronto and Calgary. There's something really powerful about feeling like your experience has been witnessed. And I think that's one way of trying to not feel as alone in this experience is feeling truly witnessed. And when I say witnessed, I mean that could just be, when every time I had an appointment, a doctor's appointment in Toronto, for example, there is always a friend that was willing to come with me. And when I do a consult with a doctor and having someone with me that they are there to witness whether it's excitement if we receive good news, or whether it's, sadness or disappointment when, receiving news that's not as great or devastating. Someone that, you can have a meal with afterwards, or just do normal things as well. Because I think there's so much in this experience that just feels so, I don't even know what this word really means anymore, but just feels abnormal. For me, I really needed the support of my friends and my chosen family to feel a sense of normalcy, in between all these appointments or radiation that I had to do like Monday to Friday. Initially, someone to have a meal with or do something fun with, and help me just to also remember I'm still this person that also happens to have cancer, versus like I'm just this patient with cancer. I think it's easy to forget about your entire identity and that you have all these other parts of yourself, for me, that make Connie, makes Connie kind of thing. To a doctor, maybe you're Connie who's patient number 1, 2, 3, 4 has this certain stage and type of cancer, right? But my friends, they help me to still remember parts like who I was, or my friends would remind me that, like I'm funny or I'm quirky. These moments where I could still retain some sense of normalcy when everything just really was, like a circus.
And I guess in a way, they make up a part of your wellness team, because you have the conventional process that you're going through with chemotherapy, immunotherapy, radiation. You have the holistic therapies that you're doing as well. So you're being supported in that way, including from a mental health perspective. And then you also have your friends that are there that are literally and also figuratively embracing you throughout this process. Are there any missing pieces to that wellness puzzle for you right now?
I'd like to spend more time in nature. I feel like there's something that is really healing and spiritual about being in nature, especially the ocean. A big portion of our body is water. So it's no surprise just why I and why people would feel this kind of connection or this transformation when they're around bodies of water or nature. And there's just something that just feels bigger than us. Something else that feels bigger than me is I still have faith in a higher being. And I know that it can look like different things to people, what spirituality is or what faith is or whatever God they might believe in. But yeah, I believe in something beyond just biology, and that like if we die, we just kind of rot into the earth and get eaten by worms and that's the end. Or I think that really helps me, because I think I'm trying to fill myself with less fear. It's really hard to sometimes, but I think that that's not good for my health either. And I also think it's a very human experience to be fearful, because sometimes fear comes in when we're wanting to live and we want to protect ourselves or we want to protect someone else. So I know it has its place, but I also think that because I have faith in a higher being, that it helps me to bring in moments a certain level of peace, that even if I might be suffering on this earth in moments, and I'm not suffering all the time, but there definitely is suffering in my life experience, that maybe that there's something else like after this. And yeah, so I think faith is another part of the puzzle that helps me to navigate my life and to feel a certain sense of hope or peace. I'm going to be honest too. There's times where I'm kind of angry at a God, and I just wonder like, well, what was the point of all these like life experiences? But I also, I think that there's a certain element of also just trying to surrender, to maybe let go a little bit of control of our lives, because I think one thing I've learned is that we kind of just don't have any control over our lives. I am one of those people that's kind of planned everything. If I go on vacation, I'm the person that's booking not 1 but 2 reservations at a restaurant. If that one doesn't work out, or I'm not in the right neighborhood, I have another reservation as a backup. So if you can see, this has definitely been a big lesson going through this for me. I think this is not, going through cancer isn't the only experience I've had with navigating uncertainty, of course, but this has probably been like the biggest kind of experience of navigating uncertainty. And that's really scary for anyone. But yeah, it's scary for me. And it continues to be. But I think, yeah, I think my faith helps me to have a little bit of maybe surrender to this life that we are just completely really not in control of, no matter how much planning that we do. And I have to just believe at some point too, like I listed so many people in my healthcare team. And at some point, I think I also just have to know that whatever the outcome is for me in my life, like I have to just believe that I did everything that I could, mortally could, with the information that I knew and the resources that I had. So, a lot of times I think we can try to look back and, oh, I wish I did this if I had known, or if I ate this, or if I ate a bit more organic, or drank this water instead, or didn't eat as much sushi, or whatever it is that we thought if we did this, then maybe our outcome would have changed. But then I sort of think, well, who knows? Like, well, what if I did all those, and I kind of actually already did all those things and it still happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I did all the right things. I got the vaccine before. I used to be a marathon runner. I took care of my body physically. I know I was, starting to take care of it spiritually and emotionally through therapy. And so you can do all those things and life still happens in a way you never expected to, right? So I think at some point there's more peace in surrendering and acceptance. When I say acceptance, it doesn't necessarily mean you feel good. It's not like I'll ever feel good that I have stage 4 cancer. But I think there's something to be said about just like, I don't know, like, for example, I can't biologically have children, and I'm learning to kind of accept I can't, but how can I be a mother in different ways? Maybe I can still be a mother, or maybe I can be, have a motherly role in other people's lives, or maybe it can be a mother to myself right now.
You mentioned sitting by the water, and that's something that we did last summer at Hanlan's Point, and also at Ward's Beach on Toronto Island. And we also went on some nature walks as well. On one of our nature walks, we were in the ravine in the Don Valley Trail, and we came upon a cement block, and it was spray painted with a saying in French, Tout est possible, which means everything is possible. And you sat down and I snapped some photos of you. So what does that mean to you today? Tout est possible.
I do remember that day, and that was a lovely day. I just remember feeling so at peace and so calm. And yeah, that's an example of just how healing nature can be to your nervous system and to, like your spirit. Yeah, I remember that day vividly, actually. So I don't know what that means, to tell you the truth. Anything is possible. I think I was just talking to another woman who has cancer as well, and at my naturopath's clinic, and a lot of times at this clinic, there's you run into a lot of other people going through similar experiences, and everyone kind of has like their own different remedies, alternative remedies, conventional remedies that they're currently doing to treat their cancer and stuff like that. And everyone usually shares notes, and you should take this supplement, or try this or that, or this is my doctor, or this one's not as good. And there's people that, for example, recover from cancer spontaneously, and it just seems like such a fable. And even though there's so many accounts of what we call like radical remissions, so-called radical remissions or spontaneous. I actually have a friend that introduced me to, one of her friends that has a true story about that. She had late stage cancer. She went through all the chemo treatments. At some point they said, there isn't any other chemo left, like, to give you, like this, we tried everything and it's not working. So your next choice is just to do palliative, and to try to, help you to regulate your pain as much as we can, basically, before you die, basically. So the doctors had to determine, like, you're gonna die. And her story is, at the end, I think it's probably for her to like share all the details and stuff. But basically, she was told that she wasn't going to live, and she had accepted that that was a possibility. And then somehow her cancer went away. And there really wasn't any like full on explanation for it. She didn't do any more treatments and stuff like that, or conventional ones at least, right? So I guess I think of that as an example of like anything is possible. Or there's just so much, there's a lot I do know about cancer now, because everybody becomes like this like mini scientist and like internet sleuth when they become diagnosed with a chronic illness or terminal. But I guess I still have to hold on to hope that anything could be possible. Like basically while I'm living, like I'm just trying my best to still live and not plan for my death while I'm still living. Or when I think of anything's possible, that could also just mean it's still possible for me to feel joy, even if, let's say, I might not have a long time. Let's say I don't have a long time left. It's still possible for me to have a meaningful life. I think it's like, for me to kind of spend more time or to think about what kind of meaning do I want to find with my life if all the things that I found meaning about had been taken away, or have been at least temporarily taken away, modified right now. Like, what do I do with what I have now, kind of thing? And to me, that's what I view in terms of possibility. Yeah, and there's moments where I just feel kind of stuck, and there's moments where I feel hopeless. So like it's just this dance. I think it's like just a very human dance. Maybe there's a third thing I can add about like this cancer experience and how has it impacted me, but it's you really in a very short period of time like just feel all the different feelings of living, of life, and in a way death, because like I'm in this space navigating between living and dying essentially. That's a really unusual place and interesting place and a roller coaster of a place, right? So I've never experienced so many intense emotions in such a short period of time and still feel like, I can still remember parts of myself, even when so much has been lost.
And speaking of purpose, you are planning a trip to Portugal. When you think about cultivating purpose in your life today, what does that mean to you?
For now, it's just about feeling joy as much as possible and to be with the people that I love and that I know love me back. Yeah, and that's really it right now. It's like, I just can't wait to be in sun and to see color and to just like eat a bunch of beautiful meals and be in a beautiful, warm, I just really, because I'm in Calgary right now, it's so freaking cold. It's just, I am definitely like, I just don't belong in winter, any winter weather places. I love summer. I've always kind of been a summer person and a water person. And that just really like my soul belongs in a place like that. So I'm just really looking forward to feeling that warmth. It's just like, it feels like a hug, but feeling that warmth from the sun and just like wearing cute spring summer outfits and laughing with my friends who are going to come with me. Yeah, I think that has given me something to strive for, to look forward to after all these treatments. And, there's just so much unknown. It's very hard for me to plan like too far ahead into my future. I'm, when I'm going through treatment, it's really like a day to day, if not an hour by hour kind of life experience. So I'm kind of not really thinking about things like retirement or things that people might be thinking about in my life stage, or having that, like child saving money for their RESP or something. Right now, it's really like, what am I doing in the next month or the next week? Like, that's really as far as I feel I can go without, if I look too far, I think that just causes me a lot more stress. But at the same time, I would say I still have dreams and hopes, and I still have fantasies about, my life after treatment, or what it would look like if I, was living independently again, or could feel that confidence to live independently again. Or yeah, there's just parts of my old life that I really miss too, that I never thought. I guess you don't really appreciate certain things until you don't have it or it's abruptly taken away. And no one can really prepare you for being grateful for everything. Like just even, I know this might be too much information, but even having a normal bowel movement, like honestly, I never thought how grateful I would be having like a healthy poop or pee. Like, or even just being able to breathe normally, being able to run errands all day and have that energy to even be able to do that. All these things that I think you take for granted when you are healthy and at optimal. When you have a chronic illness, these are the types of things where I just like, I miss the privilege of, being able to get stressed over very maybe more smaller things in life. Whether it's just like what to order if I'm going to like a good restaurant or not, or something like that. Or like I said, yeah, I miss just having all these things. I never view them as privileges, but they are.
What insights can you share with others about living?
This is a cliche, but sometimes that's why we have cliches. But life is, in any way you look at it, even if you were to live till you're 90, like life is short. And if it's not short for you, it's going to be short for someone or a friend of a friend that because we have such limited time. I think, at least this is just my experience, I think that we don't have a lot of time to live a life for someone else. And I think that, the bravest thing, the most courageous thing that you can do is to live a life that's just true to yourself, that's authentic. I think that's the bravest thing that you can do, and living a life that is not motivated by fear, but by things that you love, things that you like, things that reinforces who you are as a person, not who you think other people want you to be or what you should be. I think that's very common for a lot of people, is that, there's times where we think we're living a life for ourselves, and later on we find out that it was not. It was what society told us, is what our parents told us when we were younger, is what people who look like us do or don't, kind of thing. But I think if there's any, I guess, advice, it would just be, like, it's simple, but it's the hardest thing you can do. I think it's to live a life as authentic as possible. And what that means is going to be different for each person, but to live it authentic to yourself. I think that's where we feel the most peace, and that we could just, at the end of the day, I think we can be so hard on ourselves. Like, we come from this culture, at least in North America, that's very, nothing is good enough. I need more. It needs to be perfect. But, no one's perfect. We are all flawed. And despite that, we all still deserve to have a place in this world. We still deserve to feel joy and to be loved. Also, I think another thing would be to surround yourself with people that lift you up, people that want the best for you. I think surrounding yourself with really good people and being authentic and true to yourself and having compassion and love for yourself. I think those are the things that I think are important in living a peaceful life.
What does resilience mean to you?
I've been thinking about this lately, and I think that's a really good question. And I think what I say now, might change later on. And I think it's a very evolving type of concept, depending where you're at in your life. Because if you ask me what that means, even 2 years ago, or a little bit over a year ago, like, it would be really different. But for right now, where I'm at in my life, I think resilience means, for me right now, it means being able to adapt as much as possible, because my life is constantly changing. My health is constantly changing. There's a lot of instability. And I have just felt the more I had tried to control different variables, then something else just comes up. And so resilience for me is being able to make some level of peace with navigating how uncertain my life is, and still doing it in a way where I have some faith or belief or confidence that I'll still be okay. For example, every time, as I mentioned before, with my chemo experience, like every time that I do a cycle of chemo, it's like, oh, okay, well, I had these side effects last time. I'm going to prepare for it next time. And it's not the case. Something else comes up. And it's like, at first it felt so discombobulating. And I just felt so out of control. And I think as each round went on and I would get a different symptom in addition to the existing ones, I just felt like a little bit more accepting of like, okay, well, something's going to come up. I don't know what, but all I know is that I'm going to find a way to deal with it like I always have been and already have been. So I think that is an example of what I see as being resilient currently. And I think being resilient too is still, despite everything, that you still always find that I still find a way to have hope. And I think that's not an easy feat at all, is to still have some level of hope in terms of whether it is, this is why I'm probably trying out all these different alternative treatments, not only as a way to preserve or to be proactive about managing my symptoms, but it's the way that it gives me hope that I'm not just relying on chemo, because we know that chemo at my stage just doesn't have that great of health outcomes. And I'm hoping the immunotherapy might be better, but we don't know yet at this time. And yeah, so when I'm trying out all these different things, and I'm pretty much using my body as a guinea pig at this time, all these different alternative treatments, and that just gives me hope that I have other options. And when I feel like, I've come to a crossroads with one type of alternative treatment, then there's always something else out there to try. And so that's kind of where I'm at with maintaining hope. And maintaining hope also is still having the courage to believe or to think of your future. Because like I mentioned, sometimes I can't plan things more than like if weeks, days, maximum months at a time. But the fact that I'm still planning for things in the future, that I still believe in a future, I think is resilient. I think it's easy to kind of give up or to live as if you're dying, but I'm still trying to live as if, I'm going to be living. Well, I'm still living now. So, I may as well still try to have moments of joy and to do like things that reaffirm other parts of my identity outside of cancer. And yeah.
Are there any practices that you do on a regular basis that help you be resilient?
One thing that helps me to keep resilient is spending time with my friends, with the right people. I feel like I always get energized. A lot of things we do is about energy exchange. And, when you are with people that are full of love and care for you, it just goes down to the cellular level. And, when I spend time with the people that I care about a lot and care about me, I just feel energized again, and it makes me feel hopeful again for the next day, or it gives me this extra like oomph that tells me, it's worth waking up the next day. People have different perspectives, or they have different bodies of knowledge or information. So, it's a form of support and that energy exchange, but it's like information exchange. And between all of those different variables, yeah, you just feel like maybe there's other options out there, or I can find another way to problem solve through what I'm going through. Or sometimes it's just that felt really nice to feel seen and heard that day, to be witnessed. I think there's nothing more connecting as a human than feeling truly seen. I think a lot of times we don't really often feel truly seen. And that's what helps me to stay resilient. Without relationships, I don't really know what is the point in being on this earth.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your light. I am with a crowd of people that are by your side, cheering you on, supporting you all the way. And I feel so grateful that you're in my life as my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel so grateful that you're in my life too. And I had a really good time being able to share my experience today. And thank you for giving me that opportunity as well. Thank you.
If you wish to contact Connie Lee, you can do so via email, contact@connieleetherapy.com. Thank you for listening to The Stumbling Spirit, Contemplations on the Path of Resilience. This is Fabio da Silva Fernandez. Join me again next week for another episode of transformative stories and beneficial practices to guide you on your wellness journey. If you wish, you can follow and DM me on Instagram at The Stumbling Spirit. Until next time, take a deep breath and another step forward on your path of resilience.